it's really important that we hear from people who've actually been through this moving out experience themselves, including my colleague who moved out a couple of weeks ago, which was exciting for everyone. So we want to hear about the moving out experience from young people with disabilities and their families, and then we're also going to hear from Pauline Williams from Action for More Independence and Dignity in Accommodation. She'll be last. We'll also be hearing today from Maddie Kendall via video presentation. Jared here interviewed her on Monday because she's not able to turn up today, but she really wanted to contribute. And our other contributors will be Mark on the end there, and Jared himself will be talking, as well as Jenny, and then last Pauline. So we're just going to run them through one at a time, and after that then we'll be able to do a big bunch of questions and general comments at the end. So Mark, I might come over and start with you.
Very much, and thank you to YDAS for the invitation to share my story. I don't know that I meet the definition of young person anymore, but I feel young, so hopefully that's good enough. So I moved out of my parents' home nearly a year ago now, and that was just before my 29th birthday. And now I live in the drill hall building where this event I think was going to be held originally, and that's just up the top of Elizabeth Street, right next to the Queen Vic Market. So I always joke that the Queen Vic Market is like a great big pantry next door. And so I live on my own in an apartment there. The journey of moving out, it took a while, and there were lots of obstacles, but there were three main ones. Getting funding to essentially replace what my parents were doing, finding a way to fit within the funding and still live happily and comfortably, and three, finding a location, finding an actual roof. So I thought I'd briefly just tell the story of how those obstacles were overcome. So I have a congenital disability since birth, and growing up, my parents did the majority of my personal care. And growing up, I often heard them mention to case managers and OTs and physios that I was on some sort of a waiting list, some sort of disability support thingy, I don't know. And apparently I've been on it for years, and I thought, that's good, I'm on a waiting list also. And in my head, if you're on a waiting list, it's a bit like a queue. It's a bit like queuing up for the toilets of the tennis. You might have a great need, you might really need to go, but you've just got to wait your turn. There's nothing you can do about it. It was only, and so I kind of tried to put the idea of moving out of my head, because I didn't want something that was going to be difficult or might not ever be achievable, so I didn't want to think about it. And it wasn't until I had a change of case managers, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, and doing all the usual tell us your life story, asking a million questions thing, she asked, so ideally, if funding wasn't an issue, what would you like for your life? What would you hope for the future? And I said, well, obviously I would like to move out eventually, but that's clearly not realistic. I'll be another 20, 30 years on the waiting list, I'm sure. And she said, well, how long has it been since the Disability Support Register application was updated? And my parents said, well, it was years ago, it was probably, I don't know, 10 years old or something. She said, well, how about we update that application, put in a new one, describing who you are now, and put in that ambition into that application that you would like to transition to not living with your parents. And she said, I can't guarantee anything, it might take ages, but there's no harm in putting it down in the application. So then a few months later, I got a phone call and I was offered an individual support package, an ISP. And so that was very exciting. And so that increased my funding a lot. So the next task was, okay, I've got this ISP, but there was a big need that needed to be met, and it just wasn't going to fit in the ISP budget. And that was, I can't roll myself over in bed, and since I was very little, Mum and Dad every couple of hours got up and rolled me over in bed. If you try lying in one spot all night, it gets very painful, and there's risk of pressure sores and whatnot. And so they'd done that my whole life, and for some reason seemed to be happy to do it. I don't know why. And we looked for other solutions off and on over the years, but had never found something. So if a carer was going to, a paid carer was going to roll me at night, that would mean an active overnight shift every single night of the year, which completely blows out that way exceeds even what was quite a reasonable ISP package. So how were we going to solve that problem? One option was finding other people who needed a carer overnight and pooling funding and living together and whatnot. And that was an idea that might have worked out. But we thought we'd give one last go trying to find an appropriate piece of equipment, a medical bed, a mattress, that either meant I didn't need to turn or that would turn me somehow by the miracle of technology. And so I tried every single alternating air mattress that is available in Victoria. I went through the Independent Living Centre website and worked through every single one. And for my body, those things were just so painful, and they just weren't appropriate for me. And so we kind of really exhausted all the locally available products. Then, serendipitously, I can't remember what the Google search I put in, but discovered a Canadian company that made something called a freedom bed. And the name sounds good. So surely it can't just be marketing, right? And it looked amazingly high tech, which appeals to me as well. It's and like many medical beds, it's got all the high-low function and sit you up in bed and tilt and whatnot. But it also rotates left and right, so it rotates laterally and to shift your weight. Best of all, unlike a lot of these alternating air mattresses, which have a set program and do their thing every 20 minutes or whatever, there was a button, a remote button with a really soft, it's a really easy to press button, that you could press, apparently, according to the website, and I could turn myself. So that sounded amazing, but there was no Australian distributor, and it cost $40,000. So that probably wasn't going to work. But then I had another case manager at this point, and she was great, and she said, look, no guarantees, but it's worth a try. Let's put in to DHS an application for some one-off funding for that bed. Probably won't be any funds floating around for it, probably won't work, and then we'll move to plan B, C, or D. But let's give it a go. So I, with her help, did an incredibly long application detailing all the other products I tried, explaining this freedom bed in great detail, and explaining how, while it's a huge upfront cost, it pays for itself if you take into consideration the cost of overnight care, not to mention all the health benefits. So I claimed that it would save like $1 million every year, going the economic rationalist route. So put that in, and it took a long time to work its way through the DHS hierarchy. And I didn't realise that you could ask for this kind of thing. But who cares whether you're allowed to ask for something? You can just ask for it, and maybe they'll say yes, maybe they'll say no. And then I got a phone call, and I got funding for this bed. And so it got shipped in a plane and brought in a great big truck. And the guy from the company in Canada came out and installed it. And it's only the second freedom bed in Australia. The other one's in Perth. We're trying to get an Australian distributor, so come and see me afterwards if you would like to get in contact. There's so many other things to do. And the beds are really heavy, so that was the bed in place. Now, I just needed a location. And I knew that there's waiting lists for housing, and it can take many millennia. So I sent out holiday emails to various organisations, just telling my story and saying, what would you do if you were me? Do you know who I could talk to, or do you have any ideas? And one of the first people to ring me back was Trevor Jackson, who from HRMSS, who spoke earlier this morning. The thing that had a big impact on me was he said, what you're wanting to do is not unreasonable. It's not ridiculous. It might take a while, but we can work together and look at all sorts of options and just keep trying things. And then a few months, so I met with him and we had a good conversation. And then a few months later, I can't remember the exact date, but he rang me up and told me that there was this new building, the drill hall building, that was just being finished off. And there was an opportunity to, there was some accessible apartments as part of that building, an opportunity to move in there. I didn't think that it would happen so soon. I was expecting it to be a 10, 20-year journey, and I was kind of hunkering down for that. So I was surprised to hear that, oh my gosh, there's this opportunity. And I was very apprehensive, and so were my parents, but he reassured us. And I'm just going to look at my stopwatch. Okay, I've got a couple more minutes. And he did a great job at reassuring us that it was doable, and that when problems came up, that he'd be there to support us, and that there were solutions to the other problems that remained. So the thing that has been really great, I think the best thing about it has been that I met my girlfriend, who lives in the apartment above mine, just serendipitously, and she's a wheelchair user too. She's got cerebral palsy, and between the two of us, we joke that we've almost got a fully functional body. And yes, it's a great little community there. So what's the moral of the story? I was trying to think of, condense this down into a nice little moral. I think it doesn't hurt to ask. I heard someone say before, it's not clear with DHS and other organisations what you're allowed to ask for, but you can ask for anything. People can say get stuffed, but you can ring up, you can dial around a number on the phone and say, hello, you don't know me, but can I have an ISP? And who knows, they might be in a position to give you one. These forms you have to fill out that prescribe what information you have to give, fill out the forms. There's no reason you can't attach some other things, some photos of yourself, humanise it a bit, some extra information about who you are and what you want to do, and who knows? And hopefully when the system gets a bit fixed, it'll become easier. But for the moment, I think you've just got to keep on asking and asking and asking until you come come across someone who has a brilliant idea or who knows of an opportunity. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was very entertaining. Now we're going to actually hear from Maddie, who was interviewed by Jared on Monday, and that's going to be a video up the top here, so if our AV Maestro can work that one out for us.
Hi, my name is Maddie, and unfortunately I won't be able to make it today for the forum, but this is my way of participating in this. And then...
So how long have you been here, mate?
A year, almost.
Where are you living now, mate?
At CIU.
Yep.
And that is where, like, you have 24-hour care, but you have your own room, and yeah, you know, you get to cook once a week and stuff like that. So it's just like, it's more like a home sort of style rather than like living with your parents or living in respite, I think.
So do you live with other people or you live on your own?
I live with, I think, 4 other people. So 5 including me, but I won't include myself. But yeah, like, and there'll be a 6th person moving in, hopefully. And there's like 2 units to my house, so one side is like got its own kitchen and the other side has. So it's sort of separated, which is good, and I like the design. And we've got like an outdoor area here that I can go out from my room, which is good.
What's the best thing about moving out of home?
The best thing is that, like, I guess you have more freedom and stuff like that, and it just sort of feels like that you're a real adult sort of thing.
What's been the most challenging thing? Like, what's the hardest thing about moving out?
Well, it's a bit hard for me because, like, basically what happened to me is I sort of had no choice but to move out, so it was a bit a different circumstance. But I mean, it was just very difficult because I was in a respite and it was hard to settle. But now I feel a bit more settled, and the thing that I find most challenging is that it doesn't matter where you go, there's always these people that don't understand and they don't do their job properly, and that's what I find really hard. And I find it hard sometimes when I want to do something, but there's like 4 other people that are doing something, or something happens, or they're running behind, and then I sort of feel like that I miss out, and I get frustrated because it's sort of like you have to have a lot of patience and stuff like that, and it's so frustrating.
So what things would you say people need to think about before moving out?
Well, basically, like, my realistic advice would be, before your parents or whatever get too old or whatever happens, it's best to go on a waiting list, because then at least you've been on it for a while, because housing is absolutely shit for people with a disability. Like, you'll be waiting until you actually push and say, like, that you want to move out, or that your parents get too old and they say they can't do it anymore. Then you don't actually get put on the list, because they think, oh, they're okay because they're still at home, but it's not like that, and people are too afraid to actually say, well, I can't cope anymore, so these people think it's okay to leave them on the bottom of the list.
What would be the number one thing you would love to change about the housing system?
I think, firstly, I'd like to say that I think they need to think about also like building a lot more accessible housing and things like that, because I find that there's even I've heard stories about the units, that if people want to move into a unit, it's hard to find an accessible place, and they should build more housing, not just CRUs, but independent living, everything. But they just need to do that. Otherwise, this is going to be a continuous problem with the issue of housing not just in Melbourne, but in Australia even. If people don't start building and start planning and thinking about, well, what about disability can happen to anyone? What about if someone was living in a house that had stairs and then they had, I don't know, an accident and they couldn't get up the stairs, and then they were starting to not be able to afford their rent and all this, and then they couldn't find anywhere to live that was affordable, so then they were on the street.
Is there anything else you want to say?
And there's one other thing that I want to add that is really important to me. I don't know how other people feel, but I feel like that in the disabilities field, there are so many people that come into this field that are so uneducated, and they just go for an interview. They don't have any sort of training, and also they don't really do it from their heart. I mean, I know it's a job and people need money, but I believe that you have to have a heart and a sense of humour, otherwise what's the point? You could get a job somewhere else that probably these people would enjoy more because it pays more, and people complain about the pay, but it's not all about the pay. They should go somewhere else. I mean, I'm sick of it,
Are you talking about support workers?
Yeah, because it's just an ongoing issue everywhere you go. You always find these people that shouldn't even be here, but they just get, they fall into the career, and then it's hard. They don't get out of it, and we have to put up with them.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Is Jared, who's got an exciting story to tell. It's quite recent.
I don't know how exciting it is, but I'll tell you. So you can see by Maddie, she's very passionate about getting, she knows what she wants and knows to stand up to people who keep saying no. And it's very easy to not give anyone anything if they don't stand up for themselves. And I think people should do that more. So I'm Jared, and I work at YDAS, and with Jen and George and everyone else who's organising this event. It's great to be here, great to see so many young people here. I think it's funny how when you go across the room, the people get older. They start off young. It's funny how my boss moved over to the hands on the board. So I live in St Kilda, and public housing thanks to the help of Trevor and DHS and my boss who helped me through my DSR. But the reason I used to live at home with my parents, like most people do, And it wasn't like completely hard or, we were coping and it was fine. But like, as every young person wants, they want to go home and be awesome by themselves. I'm awesome. And, but so, I can see in the mirror. So hopefully I can work this shit out. No, I can't. Cool, you do it? Awesome. That's the type of support I'm talking about. So I can't see my writing, but I made it all fancy and like, I was really cool and like, pretend like I wrote it myself. But then I'm like, oh yes, there we go. So, before you move out of home, it's always best to like know what you want when you move out. You might not even know you want to move out, but as Mark said, the waiting list and shit like that, they take ages to go on. So, you might be 14 and quite happy to be at home, but it's best to plan for this stuff. So, yeah, and I know there's a lot of parents and workers here, and that's great, but always, the young people and the people moving out, those are the ones we need to consult with about what they want to do, where they want to live. It doesn't matter if it happens or not. Just ask the young person or whoever's moving out where they want to move out. Regardless of funding or care or whatever, always ask the person moving out. Because it works better, because if you set up this plan for them without them, and they move in and you spend all this money and time and resources and DHS workers and support workers, and then they move in, and they're either going, and they go to you in 6 months going, hey look, I really hate it here, or I'm being abused, or they don't, like, they make me go to bed at 7:30 when I want to go to bed at like 1 a.m. So, and then you need to do it all again, because what's even worse is they just have to put up with it. And that's not cool with me. When you're asking for, and I guess this is for the people who are moving out, if you're asking for support, like in my instance, I need help getting out of bed and getting into bed. I take about 45 minutes to do all that. It's not a lot. But that's come about by my parents doing it, and we have a system. We've been doing it for 23 years. We know how to do it. We can do it easily. But I'm not going to ask DHS for funding for 45 minutes for care, because you never know what's going to happen. You should always over-ask. If you need 1 hour care, you ask for 2 or 3. If you need 5, you ask for 7. You can send the carers home as soon as you finish. You don't have to, they don't have to be your friends. And talk about your day and stuff. If you don't want them there, it's easy. And DHS will be happy because you save the money. And some care agencies do have like a limit, so like a 2-hour limit or whatever. So just think about that when you're researching agencies or people. When it comes to things like carers, a lot of people just put up with whatever they're being told. Like, and it's always good to read your paperwork. This is where it's really good to read your paperwork. I signed up with agency, I won't name them because they're good, but if I decide to bag them, I probably don't want to mention them. Because they probably won't send anyone to my house tonight. So when I started interviewing support carers and agencies, I'm like, oh yes, so what's the deal here? If you can't fill a shift, what will happen? And in their contract it says we will fill a shift, we're obligated to fill a shift. But okay, well, thanks for that. So what I've asked for, so it's awesome now because like it's the best system because I get carers in at 6:30 in the morning and on the weeknights I get them in at 10:30 at night. But before I sign any contract, I'm like, give me, realistically, can you fill the 10:30 shift at night? And they're like, oh, probably not. I'm like, well, I've signed the paperwork and it says that you have to, so do it. And they didn't. It's amazing when people have to do things. They do. Wow. And like, just on the whole care thing, you don't have, the agency might be really good, but you might have 1 or 2 carers that are like, because it's new to me, they send me new carers, they've been sending me new carers to try out and stuff. So you feel like, and that comes in, like, I know you're probably thinking, well, you want to fill these shifts that might not be anyone else. But it's really important to feel comfortable with, like, especially with personal care, you need to make sure you're comfortable. Anyway, one morning they sent this guy who'd never been to my house before. And what happens is I leave my key in my no, it's fine. I put my key in my letterbox, but I have a combination on my letterbox, and I'm not going to tell you that. So I put it because I live in a new building, and like it's like all this fancy technical crap. And I have to swap the keypad to get into my house. And once I'm in bed, I can't open the door. So then that's another thing you have to think about is like being creative like that. So like, oh well, I could easily go, oh well, I can't open the door when I'm in bed, so I won't do that. But no, you just have to think a little bit more creative. And they sent this one guy and he must have misinterpreted how to use the combination on my mailbox because he stood the way he like everyone's friends and then like buzz people when they do open the door and everything. It's like that. So people like buzz me and I open the door. But obviously they can't work if I'm in bed. So this guy for like 45 minutes was like buzzing me. I'm like, dude, not going to work. Like, what are you doing here? Okay, he doesn't want to talk 3 times. Like, 45 minutes, he's still there. And he gets better. He gets better. He eventually made it. And it was really weird, you know, when carers walk in, and I normally turn on the light, and I turn on my bedroom light, and I walk in, and I say hello. This guy just in the like darkness comes up and goes, my name is Sean. Hi. Because I had trouble getting in. I know. And then, no build up, no anything, no conversation. He asked me, how much do you weigh? And then I told him what I needed and stuff. And then when I was getting my wheelchair, and I know accidents happen, it's fine. And he stood on my foot. And I'm like, hey man, you're on my foot. And he looks down. Like, you want to get off? And he's like, oh. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. So, Sean never came back. I know I've been going a little bit off my presentation, but I thought it was much more hilarious. But I know, and seriously, I love moving at home. And if most of you were here in the beginning, you might have asked me asked a question about my IHOP package. I'm a bit concerned. I'm getting conflicting views about my support being connected to my health and being not connected to myself. What DHS told me is if I were to move out, I would lose my support as well. So you just need to make sure you understand what system you're going into. And you saw Maggie. You might have noticed Maggie was like, yeah, see, I get to cook once a week, I get to hang out with 500 people, it's awesome. But then you saw later on in the interview that I don't get to do a lot. And sometimes, forget about me. So you need to work out, you need to know what's going to happen. And if something is not right, do something. They're not going to take away your funding if you piss them off. They're not allowed to do that. They can mess you around and they're uncooperative, but then they don't take funding away just because you get anything. So I want a minute time for questions as well, but we're doing that at the end. So, good communication there. I don't know. I don't listen. Don't clap me yet. So I just want to conclude that my point before, always consult, not consult, just listen. Listen to the person that wants to move out. And you do whatever they tell you to do. It doesn't matter, I don't care if you like it or not. If that person wants to move out because they want to have crazy sex parties, just do it because they want to. But yeah, that's probably not going to do, it's not going to happen. I mean, if there was a system in that, I would be the first one. But just listen to the young person and listen, and don't worry about restrictions because there is always a way to make shit happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jared. I'd like to say I was at Jared's big kick-ass house-warming party, but apparently I missed the good bit because I must have left too early. Alright, so next up we have Jenny McAllister, who's going to present to, I guess, from the parents' point of view, which might be of interest to some people in the room as well. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you very much to YDAS for having me, and thanks for the forum. It looks like it's doing great things, and I hope people feel more empowered to find the accommodation and the support that they need. Thanks for letting me talk about one of my favourite subjects. David is my son. He's 28 now and lives with cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, blindness and epilepsy. He's non-verbal and needs full assistance for all activities of daily life. By the time David was 24 and my husband's physical endurance was failing, David had become a very strong young man, and after spinal fusion surgery at 21 years old, he suddenly weighed a lot more than he did before surgery. I found that the need for more supports I found that I needed more support than that which David and I were receiving. Counsel, help, flexible respite, facility-based respite were all at the limits, and I knew the scenario was not going to improve. I would wake at night with the horrors, wondering what was going to happen to David when I could no longer care for him. Isn't that original? We had the opportunity to host a training the planner exercise facilitated by Uniting Care Community Options, but it's been done by other services as well under the guidance of Michael Kendrick. I'm sure people may have heard of Michael from Northern America. He's worked in the US, in Canada, in the UK, in Australia and New Zealand, trying to help support planners and people and governments come to grips with the idea of individual planning. Through that process, a group of 4 trainee individual support planners spent several evenings with us at our family home in discussion about David's needs and desires for his future. They came up with some suggestions of avenues we may wish to pursue, some of which had some validity, but it all revolved around David being able to obtain an ISP package, funding support, which seems to be the elephant in the room today. We applied to DHS for such a package of support and didn't receive anything within 2 years. And by that stage, my physical capacity to continue to provide long-term primary care was over. My husband was undergoing treatment for a ruptured disc and things were not good. So in January 2010, I revised David's DSR application to include shared supported accommodation. And within 6 months was on the phone to disability intake, literally crying out for help. The response was very supportive. I was given greater access to facility-based respite, which was our choice, and eventually had a limited amount of discretionary dollars provided to access some extra support at home through Bill and Maria's lifestyle program, and David achieved priority status on the DSR. That was in about July 2010. On December the 23rd, 2010, I received the phone call from DHS advising that David was being offered an accommodation placement in a shared supported accommodation house in Burrelbuck. I thought I'd been hit over the head with a sledgehammer. I cried, my mum cried, my husband and my son cried, my other son. I didn't tell David. I wanted him to enjoy the experience of his new respite house coming up. Right from the phone call, I knew we had to accept the offer. We just didn't have the capacity to continue the ongoing care at home. I certainly had misgivings about the journey and the compatibility of the placement, but we had to give it a go. A short transition period started from mid-January to the end of January, during which we visited the house and met other residents of the house. There are 5 other residents in David's house manager and various other staff members. David had dinner with everyone in the house one evening and then spent one night on another occasion. My husband and I were off on holiday from Feb 1 for 2 weeks. So David was due to spend this time in facility-based respite care. However, everyone agreed it would be a good start to spend the time in his new house. He moved in officially at the end of January 2011 and though it was a challenge for both him and his family, we're all comfortable with David's new home. So it's been quite a journey over certainly the first 12 months, the getting him in and getting everything sorted and communicating with the house and the service and making it all happen was mind-boggling. And also I needed to investigate another day program for David because he was at a service in Box Hill and the department wasn't going to pay for him to be transported from Burrelbuck to Box Hill on a daily basis. So I went to 4 services around the outer eastern area and finally found one which was able to pick him up in a bus, and that's been quite a good fit too. I can't emphasise how wonderful the staff, both actually the transition staff at DHS and the house and the service provider that we went to all were. They were all very acutely aware that it was a big decision to make on behalf of David, though he gave us such a lot of confidence that it was the right move. It feels wonderful when we take David back home after some time with us, that, you know, he's happy. He's happy in his house, and as you can see, he can express his happiness quite well. So I now have the wonderful feeling when I wake up at night that David's being cared for in a place that's so suitable I could never have imagined it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenny. And our last speaker is Pauline Williams. She's coming from a slightly different track from Action for More Independence and Dignity in Accommodation. So can we welcome Pauline, please?
Is that better? Thank you to YDAS for allowing us to come along and participate in today, and thank you to my fellow panel members. You're all a hard act to follow, but I'll do my best. So I work for AMIDA. We're an advocacy service. AMIDA stands for Action for More Independence and Dignity in Accommodation. And I'll see if this works. There we go. So I have to point it at you, right? Okay. Got it. Okay, so AMIDA is a disability advocacy group. We deal with housing problems. So I know the focus today has been a lot about getting into housing, and that's a long journey, and when you get there it's fantastic, but sometimes there may be issues. And AMIDA's role is to be an advocacy organisation that helps people stand up for themselves and if they need us to stand up with them to try and resolve those housing issues. We also resource people with information so they can speak up for themselves, and resource family members who often find themselves advocating to resolve the problems in housing. So, okay. Actually, the next one. There we go. So what do we actually do? There are a few different ways in which we advocate. We do what we call systemic advocacy, and that means changing the system. So why we need to do that is because oftentimes people have the same problem, and when there's a pattern, that means there's something wrong with the system. So instead of trying to solve each problem one at a time, we change the system that caused the problem. So for a long time we did a lot of work on trying to change the law, because the law that funds or governs the funding for services for people with disability didn't include many rights, and certainly didn't include any housing rights. And so for a long time our focus was to get some of those rights in law. That's an example, but we might also be doing work on things like public housing change, and at the moment there's some changes and threats to public housing. So some of the work we do is to change the policy, the practice in areas that affect large numbers of people. But we also do individual work, so working one-to-one with people to resolve issues in their housing. Maybe they're in private rental, maybe they live in a group home, they might live in a supported residential service, which is like a private boarding house. So we can come in and support people to resolve those issues individually. We also provide self-advocacy support, and that's about supporting people with rights information so that they can stand up for themselves, raise issues. And one of the ways in which we've done that over the years is through our radio show. And if people didn't get a copy, there are some more over there. It's a snippet of 25 years of people with disability raising their housing issues on the radio. So that Raising Our Voices radio show has been one way people have raised issues, and those have often been then taken up in our systemic advocacy. But we also provide lots of information to people so that they know what their rights are. Another part of what we do is family advocacy, and again that's providing information to family members so they know where they stand, so you know what your rights are. And as Jared was saying, it really helps if people have to do what you tell them they have to do. So it helps to know your rights so that you can stand up for yourself and know that it's okay to ask. Okay, one of the other things that we've done over the last few years is being part of a consortium of groups that manage what's called the Self-Advocacy Resource Unit. And some people in the audience might know about this if you're part of self-advocacy groups. And the SARU, it's managed by AMIDA, Reinforce, Brain Injury Matters and Start Community Art, and we've been developing and resourcing self-advocacy groups across Victoria for people with an intellectual disability, people with a brain injury or a complex communication need. And the motto is, we're stronger when we work together. SARU produces newsletters, e-memos and other information and training resources for self-advocacy groups, and on the PowerPoint there are website addresses, etc. So I think later on all these PowerPoints are going to be available through YDAS's website, and you can go onto the PowerPoint and click those links and it'll take you to the website. Another resource that we've produced is the Getting Into the Act DVD and booklet, and this was developed because the law, the Disability Act, is like, you know, it's legal jargon, and not very many people, apart from lawyers, are going to sit down and read it to find out what their rights are. And so what we've done is put together a video and a booklet that help people understand what rights you do have if you receive a service under the Disability Act. It's called Getting Into the Act. And I did have some here today early on, some people managed to get, but if you click on again the links, you'll get a copy. And on one of our other websites, which is this one, you can actually watch the video on your computer. So this other service, or this resource that we got some funding for, is called the ACT Resources Group. And we set up a website, and there's an iPhone app, we're making a DVD game, and lots of other resources that talk about what rights people have under the Disability Act. And that was again done with the help of Reinforced Brain Injury Matters and Start Community Art. It also talks about what your rights are around planning, complaints, getting information in ways that you can understand, and also about housing services. I talked before about how in our systemic work we tried really hard to get housing rights for people living in group housing. What we were really hoping was that the Residential Tenancies Act, which covers all renters in Victoria, would cover people who rent in group homes. But unfortunately the department chose to have their own separate Disability Act that had the housing rights in there for people in CAUs, and that's still something we're not particularly happy with and still pushing the boundaries on. There, as people might know, is a UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, and one of the things it says is that you should be treated the same as everyone else in the community, so we're going to keep pushing. But at the moment, there are some residential rights in the Disability Act for people who live in group homes, and that's a good thing that at least we have some, but people don't know about them. So you can't use your rights if you don't know about them. And so what we've developed is some rights training and, again, a booklet and a DVD to make it easy for people to know what their rights are. And in the last 2 years, we've run some training in people's homes and sometimes in their day services, and residents of 80 group homes have managed to get a chance to see that information and learn a bit more about their rights. But 80 group homes is only really a drop in the ocean because there are 1,000 in Victoria, so we're hoping we can continue to get funding so we can keep going out there and spreading the news about people's rights. If you want to, I'm going to show a little bit of that DVD now, and if you want to watch the whole thing, you can follow these links on the PowerPoint later on, or contact us and we can provide you with either a copy or maybe organise the training for you. So Ryan, if you could press play, please. And I think we'll do questions later. CAUs, or community residential units, are group homes for people with a disability where staff provide support in the house. Sometimes a community group runs the house, sometimes it is the government, but whoever runs the house, they are called the service provider. You pay the service provider money to live in the house. You might also pay them money for food, bills and other services.
All right. I live in a CAU, but the big question is, do we have any rights?
Yes, you do have rights. These are written down in laws. The staff must make sure that your rights are respected in the CAU.
Wow, that's a lot. Help Pauline.
Don't worry, Jane. I'll explain some of the rights to you. And there are people who can help you called advocates at AMIDA and lots of other advocacy groups.
This is a handy blue sheet with groups that can help. It has their phone numbers on it. And we will give you one too.
We won't today, I'm sorry.
Actually, I want to find out about my rights. I'm going to give a motto a ring. Pauline, could you tell us what some of these rights are?
Privacy rights. Sure, Jane, you have a right to privacy. Staff should knock on your door and get your permission before they enter, unless it is an emergency. Sometimes it is necessary for staff to enter your room to provide you with support, but they should still always knock and ask your permission before entering. You have a right to have your property safe and secure so that others can't take it. You have a right to wash without others looking, and even if you need staff help, they should give you as much privacy as possible. You have a right to speak to others in privacy in your own home and to use the phone without others listening in. So can you just walk off? She's gone. You have a right to get your letters unopened, but you can ask others to help you read them if you want.
I get the idea, Pauline. It's about respecting my dignity and privacy. Now, if we are not getting our privacy rights, what can we do?
Help to speak up. You can ring one of the groups on the blue sheet. You have a right to see a community visitor or speak to them when they visit. Or you can speak up for your rights yourself. Just politely tell staff what privacy you want. If you still don't get your privacy, just ring someone on the blue sheet and they can help you speak up for your privacy rights.
For problems with privacy, you can ring AMIDA.
Feeling safe in your own home. I think you have a right to be treated with dignity and respect, Jane. Sorry to fade it down there, but you get the idea. Okay, so it's about a 15-minute video and it goes through all the rights that you have when you're living in a CAU. We, as I said, go out into CAUs and do training with people. So the blue sheet they were talking about is something people get to keep so that they have the numbers to ring if they want to get advocacy support. And if there's anyone in the audience that has contact with people living in a group home and you want to get some training, we can come out for free. So if you live in a CAU and you want us to come out, that'd be fine. If you're a staff member and you think it would be good for us to come out, that's fine too. Okay, now, under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, there are lots of new rights coming in, and AMIDA's also got a project where we're putting together some really accessible information about what those rights are, because some of them affect housing. You have the right to be treated the same as everyone else, as I said, that's Article 5. You have the right to choose the area you want to live in and to move to different places if you want to, that's Article 18. So you may well have a program that says you can't move, but there's a new UN convention and all Australian governments are signatories to it, so you can push that envelope. You have a right to live in the community. You have the same rights and choices and opportunities as everyone else in the community, Article 19. So governments are now having to provide funding to make that possible, but again, we have to keep pushing it. The Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission. It's important to know about these places. The Equal Opportunity Act has an extended definition of disability and includes specifically addressing any genetic predisposition and even behaviour that is a manifestation of your disability. So you can't be discriminated against in your housing because of the way you behave if it's to do with your disability. That's important to know because you can argue if they try to evict you that it's against the Equal Opportunity Act. If you do need to make modifications, you have a right to make modifications in your home, even if it's not your own home. You can do so, unfortunately, this is the catch, at your own expense, and you have to agree to restore the accommodation to its previous state, but you can't be stopped from doing it if you follow those rules. So there's some important things that you need to know about your rights under the Equal Opportunity Act too. Because, as it says there in Victoria, it's against the law for a landlord or owner to deny you a rental property because you have a disability. There's actually a sheet that the Equal Opportunity Commissioner has written on this topic, and if you follow that link, you can get a copy of it. Consumer Affairs Victoria is another really important group to know about, and Debbie from Consumer Affairs is here today with lots of information about what your rights are if you are renting, whether you're renting in public housing, in social housing or in private rental, you're covered by the Residential Tenancies Act. And they also on their site have an audio version of what your rights are, which is really good, and some other information and handouts and so on, and a hotline, which, have I got it there? No, I don't. That was a mistake. But anyway, they've got their pamphlets there with their number on it, and you can ring them and get advice about any issues that you have. You may not know that you need to know this information today, but it's good to know who to go to when you do need it. The Tenants Union of Victoria is another service that gives you information. They're funded by Consumer Affairs to provide information to tenants about their rights, and they put out lots of really good handbooks on your rights. So some of those are over here today as well, but you can contact them. They have an advice line. You can ring up. You can also drop in and talk to someone about the issues and the problems that you're having as a renter, and they'll provide you with information about where you stand under the law, and they'll also advocate for you to try and resolve the issue and assist you with going to tribunals to have matters heard and resolved. There's other housing services. I know this is a lot of information, we're not going to take it all in now, but if you go onto the website later and print out or download a copy of the PowerPoint, as I said, you never know when you might need these services, and the Social Housing Advocacy Support Program, or SHASP, is another really good one if you're in public housing or social housing. They can provide you with support and advocacy, and the Council to Homeless Persons have a homelessness advocacy service as well. AMIDA, our service, we're based at Ross House, which is in Flinders Lane, just in the city here. On the first floor, and you can call us and come in and see us if you need to. I guess, just summing up, do try and find out what your rights are, depending what type of housing you're in, whether it's a group home or whether it's private rental. It's really important to know what your rights are and seek out services and ask lots of questions. If in doubt, look for answers by ringing one of the hotlines, seek support and advice and advocacy if you need it. It's been a great opportunity to be here today, so thanks YDAS for arranging the day.
Okay, I'm going to push back afternoon tea by about 5 minutes, just because I think it'll be really a valuable opportunity if someone would like to ask a question. Young people in particular, we're very keen on. Can I just have a show of hands generally if anyone's looking to ask a question? I can see Greg's interested. Okay. All right.
What do you think the major change in young people's accommodation?
Can you repeat that for us, Greg?
What's the biggest change?
Yeah, what's the biggest change in people moving into accommodation?
I get the fact that I can walk to my bedroom and to my kitchen without realizing any questions. I guess the extra responsibility of the bills and rent can be quite daunting. You need to get on top of that stuff to be able. Otherwise, you can blow out a lot and quickly. Also, it used to take me an hour and 10 minutes to get to work. Now it takes me 15. So that's, I get a lot more free time now.
Does anyone else on the panel want to add to that before we move on?
I think that's a pretty normal issue dealing with financials.
No, okay, that's cool.
I suppose the other people looking after you, guys look after you for the last 20, 30 years, and then all of a sudden you get people you don't know doing it. That could be quite once you know your rights and you develop a good communication with support agencies and they understand your needs and your life and the way you work and whatever, then
I guess the biggest change for me is all it's forced me to get really creative about solving a whole lot of problems that in the past I would have just taken the easy route and got mum and dad who were around to do it. It's forced forced me to discover some really good new ideas, and that's been the biggest change, I'd say.
Yeah, doing this is never fun.
I just would like to go through all that we've heard so far, that I don't hear anything about people who are intellectually disabled as well as with physical handicaps, and that I know for my son and a few other people, they wouldn't be able to answer or speak for themselves the way I hear people here today are, which is just wonderful. But our kids can't do that, so where does that leave people like us? We're getting tired, we get old. I worry about, will I be on my deathbed, will my son be in a good home with proper care? We're not hearing anything about that. And the same thing, the elephant in the room is the ISP package, to support us in maybe at least trying to get something like this happening.
There are alternative ways to communicate with people with intellectual disabilities.
My son has
genuine respecters.
Yeah. So all I can say is that since he's been living in his group home, he's grown as a person. He knows he's an individual and he's been respected. And people ask him what he wants to do, and people ask him when he wants to do it. And I can see that he's a happy man. He comes, when we come to visit him in his home, he is just, he's happy to show off. He shows us off to his family, to his housemates and his staff there, and he shows them off to us. You can see that he is in a good place, and certainly that's one house, but there are other good houses out there too, and they're for people with intellectual disability. He's not he doesn't communicate. He doesn't have verbals, so it's just his communication is in his manner, and so you can. The point of the exercise is that people are encouraged, staff are trained, are supposed to be trained to respect people, whatever their disability, and that includes intellectual disability.
Thanks for that, Chip. I think we're going to have to wrap up just now because we're a little bit behind schedule for afternoon tea, but I know a lot of our panellists will be around if you'd like to speak to any of them specifically. So we've got about 15 minutes for afternoon tea. So we'll see you back soon.